We are good to go.
I'm gonna call this meeting to order, Career Technical Education Committee meeting on May 30th, 2024. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion.
Got a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the agenda? All those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Can can I get a motion to approve the minutes of April 25th, 2024? We have a motion. Second, any discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Abstentions, the motion passes. And now we are streaming live, but could you help me with the Wi-Fi? Yeah, maybe I'll pass it on to you. And then while that is happening, Brett, I'll pass it to you for CTE updates.
Okay. Lots of updates to share at this meeting. We just had a data pull of our class of 24 data into RIDE. And overall, we had, with RIDE approved programs, I'm gonna give you two sets of data. We had 164 students. Sorry, let me just slow down for 1 second. So,
Appreciate it.
So, in RIDE approved programs, we had 274 students, and 140 of them met the credential requirement, 168 of them met the work-based learning requirement, 109 of them met both, so we're at 40%. And in 2019, we were at 4% who graduated class, so we've had a huge increase, not only in the number of students in CTE, but the number of students that are meeting the rigorous requirements of both the credential, or all three requirements, 3-course or 4-course sequence, meeting the credential requirements specific to their program, and meeting the 80-hour minimum work-based learning requirement. So, and we still have a few more weeks of school, so we have a few programs that are still doing their final credential testing, so those numbers can only go up. But we're super proud just of that number, because we have gone from 17 programs to 30. We've increased the number overall by, I think, 40% enrollment. So we're about 1,600 students total in CTE. So sometimes when you make that rapid growth, the quality or the attainment has a lag, and we haven't seen that. We have kids achieving at a very high level. We also track, as you guys well know, gold, silver, bronze. And this year, breaking that 40% of completers, 26% of our kids are in the gold category, which means they have met the standard for the state and exceeded the standard with other credentials, dual enrollment credit, projects, or things that the instructors deem important to their trade. So that's a real positive in terms of an update. Today, I had the honor of going to New England Tech to watch 6 students who were fully released from their senior year to attend New England Tech full-time. There were 3 from PCTA in auto and HVAC, 2 from Alvarez in Med Tech, and 1 from Central, also in Med Tech. So all 6 students earned a full year of college credit. Some of them are going to stay at New England Tech and finish. Others have post-secondary plans, but they all have these credits from New England Tech, a full year of college credits. Some of them, the PCTA students, also were awarded articulated credit from the work that they did at PCTA. Next year, we're going to have 8 students going to New England Tech full-time. So that's second update. I do have the June 6th career signing day on the last item on the agenda, so I'll speak to that later. Other updates, we are putting forward several new programs in the fall for RIDE approval. So whenever I'm presenting data, you sometimes hear me say RIDE approved and not RIDE approved. Every program that we feel is ready, will be put forward for right approval so that we'll have that stamp. We also learned this week that NAF, which is a National Career Pathways Organization that evaluates career pathways and is involved with our redesign efforts at Mount Pleasant and JSEC Career Pathway specifically, provided validation of our career pathways at both Alvarez and Mount Pleasant, and all three, I keep saying both. At Alvarez, JSEC, and Mount Pleasant, the career pathways that NAP has been evaluating all year have all been validated. So you're going to see a ramping up of the programs in those schools. I think that's it for CTE updates. We have a couple new partners coming on board. Couple really exciting discussions in the works with Providence Water, with Johnson Controls. So we're very proud of the work that's happening in CTE and ramping up for our summer program.
Any questions, comments? Yeah, I think I think it's always interesting to hear everything going on, like all the good positive news
Yes.
that
We don't often hear.
that we don't often hear. So I know we do promote a lot of these activities like on our social media. I don't know. I just maybe it's something like I could help like continuously share with the board via written. I know we all like the updates and the board meetings. And I guess I'm just in that mental space
Yeah, next
right
meeting
now.
I can put those bullets together for you. I usually give to you. I know you always read them, so.
Yeah. And I guess I'm just in that mental space, especially today, because in terms of just a lot of negativity for school. But yeah, those are all positive.
I have to shout out the communications team because they've done a lot of work
Yeah.
with our events.
Yes.
We got a lot of good press for Project MFG.
Yes.
I didn't mention, we have 28 kids going to national competitive events in the next 4 weeks. I mean, that's unbelievable. We have one going to Pennsylvania to compete in the welding competition as a result of his first place there. We have 8 kids from Del Sesto and Alvarez going to San Diego to compete in they won at Rye Mesa, which is the Mathematical Engineering Science Association. So they're going to compete in the National Mesa organization. And it's nice that we see middle school and high school kids traveling together.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have 9 kids from JSEC going to HOSA in Houston, and a whopping 18 students going to Atlanta to compete for Skills USA. So, I mean, that's really amazing. That our kids are being recognized, their talents are being recognized at the national level. And we are preparing a big press release and just hope that the media will cover, this kind of thing that's happening, because we don't hear that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're little Rhode Island, and we're getting all of these accolades at the national level, and I think that speaks to the strength of the programs.
Yeah.
So anything you could do to help that, I think when people hear that, their perception of what we're doing really changes.
Yeah, and I mean, you're right. I've been seeing a lot of good communications around, events in general, PPSD especially, CTE. But yeah, if we could get strong media hits on all this, that would be.
Yeah, I mean, some of these stories.
Sometimes it's harder to
Some of
get.
these kids that are traveling, like their stories are just amazing, like how they got to this level and what they're up against. Like how nerve-wracking would it be to be welding, in the middle of Pennsylvania? Like, I mean, that's amazing. It is a huge prize.
Well, I'll be there,
at
so I'll send you
stake.
lots of pictures.
Yeah.
You'll be there. I mean, that's amazing. And Skills USA and 12 and 13-year-olds going across the country to compete in engineering competition. That's really cool.
Yeah. Exit policy. So I know we passed the buck on that conversation. I think specifically to get your feedback on it. I think maybe like pulling up the current the exit policy.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. Hold on for everybody.
Because we have her. Also, I changed the survey. Hopefully, the survey should be reviewed now.
Okay.
I did see it.
Okay.
Let me pull up the exit policy.
It's gonna be a Google Drive.
Yeah, I'll share it with you. Do you have access to it?
Yeah. Right.
Probably one of the few public meetings where like laptops open and like the workshop.
Yeah, that's the way to get work done.
Stream.
I know. All right, I'm sharing it. You have it open, right?
Oh, yeah.
Shared. Take a second. And to reorient, Andrea met with two administrative teams, yours and Matt Judas that you keep, we kind of put them in a different category because you guys are wall-to-wall CTE. We might want to send it out for any other administrator that wants to look at it. Did meet with the equity team. I think that's it. You know, it needs to go through another policy, right?
Yeah, it would be, and I think, from what I understand, the policy committee meeting potentially won't be meeting in well, at least this next meeting, so we might have some time if we want to pursue something for like July.
I'm thinking, I'm looking at the guidelines and looking at implementation strategies. I do have an in-house form that I created for, just the CTA when kids want to change. So I keep track of and why they want to change tech areas and that, you know, there's to be in good standings to change pieces in, to make there's a real discussion, private discussion about why they need to change, then that's a different story. But a lot of kids will come in and realize, you know what, this really isn't for me. I'd like to go to culinary, or I'd like to go here. And, you know, they're in good standing, so I'll switch them if there's a seat.
Yeah.
There's no one on the wait list, and that's another whole
Yeah, I don't know if we want to confuse those things
No,
because,
but
we can take, I do like the idea of a standard form across the
I'll share
district, you know, an exit form, and I do feel like equity was really important to bring it in front of the equity team, but I also feel like we need to bring it in front of the whoever handles transfers, like get people from registration and safety involved, because we want to make sure that, you know,
you mean from school to school?
if they're leaving
Okay,
PCTA,
so
but taking your form and standardizing it, so if they want to leave EQ'd and it is because of CTE, you know, we want to make sure it checks out, there isn't, you know, like if this, I don't know, there isn't a reason not to move to another school, we don't want to create issues for another school,
Absolutely, I agree with that.
but.
And the other question I have is CTE students should have a mechanism to change until November of the student's 11th grade year. I think that's late. Was there data or a reason?
What page are you on?
Oh,
right
first
here.
page. And I only say that, I mean, they miss a lot in the 10th grade, at least at BCTA. Between the 9th and 10th grade and next year, 10th grade, they're gonna be in there for 2 periods. So to switch at the 11th grade, especially if they've already had, if they were in a construction trade and they had to do OSHA, well, I'm sorry, if they were not in a construction trade and didn't have to do the OSHA 10, it's very hard to put an 11th grader, even in September, to a tech. I don't know if we can do it start of the 4th quarter, 10th grade, so they have at least a quarter in the new program to work on their OSHA training or any certifications or certificates that they might have need for safety, or like in, you know, food service and culinary, there's Serve Safe, you have to be trained. Cosmetology, there's different safety tests and all as well.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if we could bump that back to even by the end of the 3rd quarter, 10th grade.
I'm gonna put a comment in, I have mixed feelings, because if someone leaves, we have an empty seat.
But I
So,
can fill the 10th grade seat, that's the other thing too, Brad.
no, if someone leaves in the fall of 11th grade.
I can't fill that seat, it's almost impossible to get a kid to leave their school in 11th grade. You've seen how and I'm not trying to argue with you. but-
No, I know how hard it is, oh, totally.
That's the other thing. I mean, I can get ninth and 10th graders in, usually I can get 10th graders in up until the middle of the 10th grade. But after that, they're pretty comfortable and.
Yeah.
So that's
But
my comment.
I'm just playing it out, because there's exiting, but we have to make sure that there's filling, right? So, on the exiting front, you're concerned about entry, not exit.
Yes, I'm concerned about a student entering a different program at the 11th grade.
The only pushback I have, and I don't know how to resolve it, because safety obviously is everything, but I think when kids come back junior year, their schedule is so different at PCTA because it's every other day. So it's a whole different ballgame, like it was one period a day, even though it's an extended period, and then suddenly they come back junior year and every other day they are a full day in the shop. And that's where for some kids, the rubber meets the road, like I don't want to spend 50% of my time in the shop. So they should be able to exit, right? Because you don't want someone spending 50% of their time in something they're not engaged in, but then what do we do with that seat? Like that's the problem.
Well,
It's
that's when we bumped up 10th grade to 2 periods.
just to give them a bigger taste of,
Bigger taste of it.
yeah, no, I think and maybe we have language in here, except under exceptional circumstances, so that we do have the option, because if that seat's open, and a student comes to the registration office, right, maybe they're not from another tech school, but they have a real passion for culinary, would we say absolutely no? Like, the entry, you're right, like the kid at Central has got a group of friends and loves his teachers and doesn't want to leave Central, but a kid at the registration office, we have an empty seat. Like,
Well,
I'm a chef.
that's, okay, so I'm looking now, that's a different situation. If someone in the 11th grade wants to realize, you know what, this isn't working for me, I'm gonna track BCTA, and we have an empty seat, we talk to that student and parent when they come in and say, you need to make up all this training,
Right.
associate training, we give them a set time. I mean, it's rare, but we have kids coming in, and we'll do that with them, and they're required to make that up. I'm just thinking more internal at BCTA.
Oh, yeah.
The
Yeah, but I
internal-
don't think you don't need to worry about that in this policy, I don't think.
Well,
Oh,
Doesn't say-
change or drop, yep.
yeah, it doesn't say, and it's not specific.
Okay, so I think we need to spell this language out a little more clearly. I don't think we want to say never,
No,
but,
I would never say.
we are
that.
kind of talking about three different things. We're
Yeah.
talking about internal transfers, we're talking about leaving the building, and we're talking about coming into the building for the first time. And maybe we just want to not have anything about changing within a building. This is either about I'm leaving PCTA or EQ, or Mount Pleasant's pre-engineering, or I'm coming in. And Andrea and I talked about that, like maybe this is literally just exit. Because I don't want to box ourselves in too much. Like, I think that we need to, I think this is an economic argument to a large extent. Like, we're spending a lot more money on a seat at PCTA because of the staffing required for CTV, the equipment, and all that stuff that goes into a CTV program. And if a student doesn't want to be there, we want to create the seat. I don't know if we want to
That's right.
have the policy of coming in and how we're going to decide who gets that seat here.
No, okay, so I was confused, because the CT students should have a mechanism to change or drop academic programs until November, so I just thought. That's any CT student.
Yeah, I think we need to clarify that whole sentence.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because if you were confused, then everyone's going to be confused.
Yeah, so if I'm a regular ed, not regular ed, a regular track student at,
A non-CT.
non-CT
Central.
student
Right.
at Central,
Yep.
you're telling me if there's a seat, I can come in and we allow that now anyway,
Yeah, I think we should,
because they were
up
not.
to you, but I think we should focus on exit.
If that's what you all feel is going to be most helpful in terms of implementing a policy that school board recognizes is going to live longer for the CTE program, then let's do it. Because I also don't necessarily want to do anything that's going to harm.
Right.
And then that's the goal. Like, we're trying to make sure we're getting the right. We always have the right students in these seats.
Right.
And not
And it's.
blowing money away on students that don't
Yeah, I
wanna
mean,
be
this
there,
is
right?
really about, yeah, the intentionality of the seat, right? We want a kid who wants this seat because this is a career interest for them.
Do you know when Andrea was drafting this policy, if there was any other exit policies from other districts that we can mirror? Is that some research that maybe we
She
have?
might have done, yeah, we can do that, I don't know. I mean, in the state of Rhode Island, I don't know that there's, I mean, Pawtucket, like, has a couple high school, like Davies is all CTE, like, they must have their own policy for Davies because they're a state CTE, but I don't know how Cranston East and Cranston West, you probably just leave a program, but you don't leave your building.
Yeah,
This
you
is
just
a
probably
little
go
bit
back to
unique.
academic, come out of CTE, just go to academic.
Yeah, but you don't leave your school. Like, there aren't that many multi-school districts.
It's just doesn't leave.
Mm-hmm.
I know that in the past, Davies students, this is very past, if they did not pass their CTE program, even if they got all A's in academics, I can repeat the entire year. And then that would,
That's a hard choice.
yeah, that's a hard choice to repeat the year or join voting in my future school. I don't believe that policy is in effect at this time.
So I think in terms of next steps, I think doing a little benchmarking is important.
Yeah.
I also think we should make sure that whoever, and I would assume it falls under Sandy Stewart, like who's ever in charge of the district movement policies, like around safety transfers or just school transfers or whatever, like I feel like
That's
we
a good
need to
point,
make
yeah.
sure that there isn't something that is at odds with policies around either safety, hardship transfers, whatever the rationale is for other transfers in the district.
Yeah.
We wanna make sure that we're working, I think that we're asking for a level above that. But, you know, we wanna make sure that we're not undoing or undermining other policies in the district.
Yeah. No, I like that. And I think we could take our time in terms of making sure we get this policy right. So
Yeah.
I think like tapping in other people in the district, doing some research. At least like we're all plugged in on this document for any further like comments or changes, and maybe even folks from, you know, other folks on the community can consider.
Yeah.
Yeah, their feedback or
Yeah.
their feedback as well.
Yeah, I think we can get it right.
I'm happy to help out with the researching of other policies, but I think you brought up a good point in terms of just the uniqueness.
Yeah, but outside, you know, there's plenty of larger districts that have multiple schools and different configurations, and thematic schools, like it's not just CTE, you know, what does New York City do when they have a magnet school, if it goes there and they just don't like it, it's oceanography or, you know, some theme that they no longer like, if that's the only reason they're not happy at that school, what is the transfer policy for them? So I think we should do some research.
Okay.
I just don't know if it would be necessarily in Rhode Island. And I think, you know, Davies is somewhat unique because it's a state school, so they have totally different policies. So,
Hey.
hello.
Oh, no worries.
So do you wanna kind of table that with the next action steps, maybe
Yeah.
doing a little research, and I'll ask Sandy, who is the person, I don't know if it's Sandy, but I think it would be good to have someone read it and make sure that we're in line with other policies in the district. I don't know, who runs the policy committee?
Melissa Hughes.
Yeah, I mean, maybe she could pull up any other transfer policies that are current, you know, I don't know how long it's been since those policies were reviewed, but I think that's also important.
I'll share that with her. So just so she knows.
Yeah.
Basically, marijuana for student policy. Next.
Any other comments on the exit policy?
Jen, have you seen the policy?
Yeah.
Yeah, we reviewed it last time.
Yeah, so we're just kind of taking it to the next level. How narrow, I think just to summarize, how narrow do we want to go? Because are we talking about just exiting, or are we talking about who gets the seat once the seat is vacated? Because that opens something.
That's a separate.
Yes, so I think it's a separate policy. Some of it is covered in our admission policy because kids do stay on the wait list. So, we have kids that we've called 2 years later, in 10th grade and said, you applied in 8th grade, are you still interested? To Judy's point, that kid might be, has a circle of friends and a circle of supporting adults and doesn't want to leave their school. But we do have a policy for wait list and it doesn't expire. And then the second issue we were just talking about is just the second issue was benchmarking other cities that have a similar configuration, how do they handle it? And then third, making sure that other people who have transfer policies around safety or hardship or other reasons that kids transfer, making sure that we are aligned. We might have a lower bar for moving someone from a seat that we deem really valuable for someone else, but we want to make sure that we don't create an issue with competing policies. So.
Also, we were using our laptops to just use stuff probably view the survey and stuff. So
What you just sent.
yeah, what I just sent. So we don't print out documents. Happy to share, I guess, a laptop medium.
No, I like
Or you can view it on your
I guess what
phone.
I'm-
Yeah, can you see it on your phone?
Mhm.
Any other comments on exit policy? So we're gonna move on to stakeholder and student survey. So one of the things I really want to do is just collect information around, especially from stakeholders, business partners, folks that we deem we want, feedback from in terms of the future of CTE programming, just to get information. And one of the reasons why is the status of the school board is going to be in flux. One of the things that we do know is there will be a return to local control at some point. And the CTE committee, this has been sort of a restart, this year, or year plus primarily. And want to make sure that there is enough of a foundation and also information gathering between stakeholders for folks in the future, right? So if it's hey, our priority areas for CTE should be X, Y, Z, or this is our feedback. This is stuff that we should, know and sort of take in the future. And I kind of want to use that information for advocacy around our city council members and sort of our general assembly members to be hey, these are all the great things that are happening in CTE right now, but we've collected this feedback and we think we could do X, Y, and Z with it usually ends up with more funding and more support or stuff like that. So I've always found that so the charge I wanted to do is just collect information, strategic planning type of survey, because I think, and Brett, correct me if I'm wrong, yes, there is thinking ahead, but a lot of times it's just trying to get everything that's done in front of you. And I think also charging a lot of our businesses, folks that are involved in CTE to ask for your feedback and where we could go in the future is helpful. So that's what the survey is looking to collect. I'm happy to change any questions or add questions. I want to work with the school district communications office to, it's just a simple blue coloring, but branded, properties. And then ask for your feedback in terms of who do we share this out to. Obviously, our business partners, maybe some elected officials, maybe some policy staff in City Hall, just to sort of get that feedback of where we should go. Does that sort of clear in terms of what we're gonna do? Do you find this as a impactful sort of project in terms of
I do.
Yeah.
I think I want to hear what they have to say. I think I would suggest, and I figured out how to do this on Google Form. I don't know how to do it this second, but having a couple of categories, and some people might be really interested in one category and want to skip another one. I don't want to limit ourselves to people who rush through this and then don't answer it because there's a lot here. Like you could skip to the next section, but sections to me, buckets of sort of future plan. Like I love this emerging industries because, there's the blue economy. There's like, those sort of futuristic things, and I'd love to hear people's thoughts. I think there's a real practical side in here, like tweaking what we have, maybe, like how do we strengthen the work-based learning opportunities in the existing programs and local businesses. But, and then I'm thinking about a third section that I think about all the time, and I think because of where I was today at Midland Tech and seeing those kids pick a major is like, what's the balance between new programs and customization, right? What's the balance between RIDE-approved CTE programs and workforce development? That's really what it is. Like, we can keep adding programs, and everywhere I go, people are like, you should have this program, you should have this program. Like everyone's got an idea because of course, like there's a couple kids that want to be veterinarians. And so, like, is there enough to have a veterinarian program? But like, you should have a program in this and then and I think, yes, but there's a cap to how many programs we can have. There's building and facility and instructor and cost constraints. But workforce development to me is like senior year, how do we get kids, whether they're CTE kids or non-CTE kids, into something impactful that, is short-term leading to something that they want. And they have, I think Judy brought up at the beginning of the meeting, a lot of 8th graders pick a CTE program, and then by the middle of 10th grade, they have no idea why they picked that, right? But by, I think by that summer between 11th and 12th graders, as a mom and as an administrator, I've always seen kids kind of grow up and mature, and they start to have, more definition about what they want to do. So how do we use the city as a way to get the kids their opportunity without trying to create a program for everything under the sun? And so I'd love to hear what other people think about that. Like, it's almost like the allocation of resources, whether it's human resources like my team or it's financial resources in the district, between like those traditional paths and then finding for this one kid who really wants this area, there's a program at CCRI. This, kid wants this, there's a major for that at New England Tech. I mean, CCRI is dying to work with us. Like, they understand like how tightly we could work and, what we can do. So that's my thought is, could we put another section in here about sort of non-traditional CTE programming and maybe call it workforce development, but make sure that people know what we're saying when we say workforce development.
So with that said, because I was looking at some of the survey, I want the data to be really deep, right? Because some of our kids, by the time they're seniors, realize this isn't for me, but I am going to college and I want to be a nurse or something like that. When you said the different layers, I'm thinking something like, for seniors, maybe a special survey just for our seniors that are graduating.
Are you talking about student survey or
Yes,
stakeholder survey? Student survey,
Are we
okay.
We're on the stakeholder.
Sorry,
So we're on the
sorry.
partners, but
No,
save that
But
thought,
yeah,
because
because
I like that idea.
You got me when you said that. Okay.
Yeah, no
Seniors and
worries.
alum could get their own survey.
What I hear from stakeholders sometimes, they don't know how to read a room. They don't know how to add. Like, how do we get it deeper again back to the stakeholders so they're not talking about things that we haven't looking for? You know what I mean?
You understand, yeah.
Well, you could ask
Like, I want to ask
a
you.
generic, like,
Yes.
if you are an employer, that's why I'm saying sections, and you have the ability to skip sections, right? If you are an employer, what are your noticings about, recent hires coming out of Rhode Island high schools? It doesn't have to be about Providence, but what are your noticings? What strengths do they bring to your organization? What skill sets do you feel we could better develop? And some of them are going to say very practical things like rulers and safety or, skills like that. Some of them are going to say communication skills and, more of those work readiness skills. But that could be a section. Like, if you're an employer, answer here. If you're a higher ed person here, if you're a policymaker here, like, I don't know. But you don't want to have 17 different versions of the survey, but we know how people are. And if they open it up and they feel like I gotta answer, 17 open-ended response, they might close it. But like, if you're a policymaker, focus on section 5, if you're a whatever, and don't block them from submitting if they only wanna answer one section. Because if that's the world that they live in, that may be, so it's kind of like a higher ed partner, an industry employer, and then maybe like a policy, government, elected official kind of section, but all in one. So someone could answer all of those things, but they could be more targeted and give us deeper data.
Yeah, so employer, government official / policymaker, higher ed partner, and I just put like community member.
Yeah, like what do you want for your kids? What do you want for the kids of Providence? Yeah, like that, maybe this survey is sort of geared towards the role that you play. You feel free to answer all questions or focus on the section that is most applicable to like your connection to CTE or your connection to Providence graduates, whichever one like you feel closer to.
Okay.
How about how can you support CTE programs and then like a list of all the categories? 'Cause I feel like even myself, I don't know everything that PCTA offers.
Yeah.
Like there's so much, and stakeholders, community people don't know exactly everything that is in these schools.
Mhm.
So if somebody's reading it and they're in a field that they can come in and help, that should be an option for them.
I like that.
For community member, would that encompass parent, or should we like specifically outline parent?
I think community member.
Yeah, parents
invested
get
in
survey works.
Yeah.
Do you guys, does PPSC get the survey works results, right?
We do, yeah.
They're published.
Yeah. It is, and a lot of the survey works questions that's a very in-depth survey. That one takes like 20-something minutes.
Well, and that's what I want to avoid is like,
Yeah, we don't want it to be 20 minutes.
I know I get surveys in my role a lot, and sometimes when I see too much about, like future technology, I'm like, I can't do this right now. I'll do it
Maybe
later.
that can
I
be
shut
at
it
the
and I
top.
never go back to it.
At the top of it, 4-minute survey,
Yeah, you can do a hyperlink to the section that you want to answer.
because I mean,
It's a little fancy.
people
but
just
someone
read
can do it.
survey, they may not want to click on it.
Yeah. That's true. On SurveyWorks, for anything specific to CTE, can you get like information like, okay, or does this happen? Like, hey, this is all of the feedback from parents related to, I'm pretty sure like in your school specific, right?
Yours is,
It's school specific, but
no?
I've never seen the
I don't
survey works.
recall.
Oh, I thought it was.
I don't recall anything specific to, so I have all the survey results here. Which one were you specifically asking about?
Yeah, I guess I was just wondering like, in terms of, having like some sort of
Parents?
like, yeah, if we have like a report after all of this, right? We survey students, stakeholders, here's what parents have said. Is there answers within that data that we can use for the purposes of what we're trying to do, like strategic planning? Maybe not, but I'm just curious.
So the major sections are perception of school,
Yeah.
which doesn't necessarily speak of CTE, it's more in general. The school environment, perception of school safety, and then
It'd be tough to segment, CTE, parents, parents.
Right.
I mean, you could have PCTA, but you would have.
Well, and that's why we have to be careful, because if
Yeah.
everyone thinks this is a PCPA survey,
Yeah.
then it just limits them. And so I think to your point, Suzanne did a great graphic of just all the schools and all the programs. Like it almost, I don't know the capability of Google Form, but it could link to,
It was
that
on the
graphic.
presented here.
yeah,
That
with
shows
the,
like
each
the
school
schools,
building and
yeah.
the programs, and people are like, what,
I learned
yeah,
that.
everyone was like, there's pre-engineering at Mount Pleasant, like they didn't know.
Yeah.
So we could, you have to educate a little bit on what CTE is for the community. I think the business partners kind of know that term, but they don't know, again, they're thinking this building.
Mhm.
I went out to an industry partner in April and they had no idea about anything but PCTA.
Yeah.
And that's a constant challenge, but I want people to answer, this thinking more broadly about the whole district.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I like it. I mean, I like this future. I like having at least one question that is just so open-ended that they could talk about AI, they could talk, because people just know stuff. Like people in healthcare might say things about AI and where that's taking us and what kids need to know in a way that we're not thinking. Like we just, we're thinking about direct patient care and they're thinking about like how the cloud is gonna make decisions on the medicine that I'm taking, so they could give us things that we're not thinking about. So I like those questions about the future kind of technology, and we might get some people who are involved in the blue economy. I don't know much about the blue economy. I mean, I know a little bit and I know its potential, but I'd love to have an open-ended question so people could educate us.
Mhm.
Because it doesn't just inform CTE, it might inform our academic programs and what we need to teach kids in computer science.
Yeah, so it seems like we definitely want sections, or at least like having folks like record
Headers.
themselves,
Yeah.
in terms
Yeah,
of, like,
identify themselves.
hey, like, I'm an employer, I'm a government,
Yeah.
community member.
Or many of these, we want to give that option.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not like a choose one
You're
option.
3 of those that, but I am multiple, or I can select as many as apply.
Select as many as
Yeah,
apply.
I like
Yeah.
that.
Other section. Okay, and we could, depending on, because I'm not the Google expert, we could just make it where you don't have to answer every question. If you have questions.
Yeah.
Not every question is required.
Nope.
No,
Just to feed myself some sugar.
Uh,
So I need to shut up.
any other like potential questions on here? Again, we'll be working on this. I'd love this. I think some of this is out in like August. It will be August,
I
right?
think so.
Right. School year ends July.
Yeah, or send it early in the summer. Maybe people will take their phone to the beach and have fun, doubt it. But, you can send it again at the end of August. I think that's when people are kind of like, that's New Year's for me. Like,
Yeah.
I always say Happy New Year all September, because that is New Year's. So I think that's when to have it go out. But maybe test it with Jen and Willie and Joe first. Just as our industry representatives.
Like Jen said, I don't even think people know that they could recruit from high school, from CT high schools, and get help, because I know the food service industry is starving, the hotel industry right now is starving for employees, and, they're not looking at the internships, bringing a student in. A lot of it has to do, they won't hire anyone at the age of 18. No, they will, they can't use some of the equipment, but that's okay. So, I can think 5 places off the top of my head, I just don't have all the time to like properly.
The last number I got for Federal Hill, looking for food service, was 600.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Dishwashers, busboys, all those positions. Can't fill them.
Full-time.
They're great for high school.
We need a full-time school to career coordinator. To go out there and probably to get our kids in the right jobs, in the right place.
I love that idea.
I'll do it.
I mean, yeah, we don't really have that, because I think of
We have our internship coordinators that are fabulous at work out.
Yeah, no, but they're
What?
also funded too, so.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think people understand how labor intensive that work is.
It's yeah.
It's just, you need 5 of them, it's just a really labor intensive process.
We are actually having a networking event for job openings in 2 weeks for the Small Business Coalition. For employers that can't find people.
That we should talk about more. Yeah, but it is, I mean, it is just for the employer, especially those small businesses, the whole, like, we have to figure out a better matching system, but it is very labor intensive.
Hmm.
But I like this, I think that, we should workshop it a little bit, maybe get it out in July and like, kind of hit the pavement at the end of August when we're getting ready to get back.
So, I think what I'll do is give like, a flexible deadline, but June 15th, of like, other members that are not here for feedback on questions.
Yeah.
Work on like the formatting, stuff like that.
If you make me an editor, I'll try to help. I remember that I did it, and I was so proud of myself. It's one of those things, if you don't do it often, you can't remember how to do it, but I did create sections, and I think there's a way in the top that you can like hyperlink the sections.
Yeah.
Maybe I am an editor, but not from that link.
No, I just usually,
So we can work on it together. And then I can ask, I mean, we can always put a link in, but like here, as a refresher, here are the CTE programs and link it to that school thing. That seems to really resonate with people. They see the high school and the programs, and it gives them a good sense of what's happening.
you are now a editor.
We just got a scholarship.
Should we look at the student one?
Yeah, let's look at unless there's any other questions.
Share it out.
Any other questions on stakeholder? So we'll look to engage all the members that are not here, and any feedback y'all have, feel free to send them up. So the student survey, I think there's a lot more time. I'd like to just do it at the beginning of the next school year, right? That's very ready of it. And this kind of goes along with the whole like strategic planning aspect. This is like a very generic type of survey. But in terms of our students are customers of these programs, right? And CTE is, such a specific aspect, right? In terms of like getting that information from students. So as you're going through this, like, one, is it helpful? Is this, to be able to collect this information? Judy, I already know you had some thoughts in terms of, so I'm assuming maybe yes, it is helpful, but like let's add on some questions.
For seniors, or
for
customize it
seniors.
for seniors.
And I'll pause there because you had comments on it, so.
So I'd like to see, could be one survey, and if you're a senior, like Brett said, it takes you over here. I think the view, and we don't really have a survey, it's just verbal conversations with kids. The view sometimes after their fourth year is like, this really isn't for me. And I was talking to one group of seniors and who all made certification, but they're going way different paths. And that's this year's seniors, so that doesn't mean our incoming freshmen or current kids won't do that. But
Yeah.
I'd like to see it, something, what do you plan to do after high school? This is for seniors, continue on to college for my career path, union or work in my career path, nothing to do with my career path. And if they check nothing to do with my career path, I'd like to know why. And I'd like some, I don't want them to just be able to say because I'm not interested. I'd like them to be able to say why they're not interested. It wasn't for me, I couldn't change programs. I really wanted to be a nurse my whole life. Just something where we can get the data, because if we have 30 kids, 40 kids exiting PCTA that want to be nurses or doctors, maybe we need a bigger healthcare program.
Yeah.
Or if we have 30 or 40 kids exiting a career program, going into that career program, maybe I need another teacher in that program, a bigger space. So, the data is to improve.
Mhm.
So, I just want to know where we need to improve, or where we need, like Brett's saying, we're opening 40 new programs now.
Yeah.
Not open for, we have like cities for, yeah. So we need to know what the kids want, or what they think they want, or by the time they're senior, really know what they want at that point, you know? So that's my thought. And the underclassmen, a little different, you know, where you are. You know, I think the underclassmen will do well with that survey, but we really need to know why, or why or why not kids aren't following the clear path and what they think they want to do. Or maybe, when did you realize this was what you
That
wanted to
was
do?
what I was gonna say,
You know?
it's like, when did you realize this is what you wanna do or not wanna do? Like, what is that
Yeah, where's that
time?
trigger now?
Yeah,
Because everything is so, you know, when I was in high school, 100 years ago, you know, there really wasn't CTE, but you could go through all these different career pathways through high school. It wasn't CTE school, but went through everything. Chose not. But at least I had like the exposure to see what I might or might not want to do. And I'm, you know, I would love to see more, I think the industrial arts and home economics in the middle schools. I understand they're expensive, I understand budgets and stuff, but those were really big ways for kids to really see what carpentry is about, or what cooking is about.
Well, I did it at Hanley. We had vocational exploration for ninth grade.
You have the exploration,
I
yeah?
don't know when did that stop? Why did it stop? But that was every 3 weeks we had a different tab.
Honestly, it stopped because all the students, all the girls that came to our school, when the school opened, we had a generic lottery, and every kid that applied to PCTA went in the lottery. And whatever we took in, let's say 200, all the girls picked cosmetology, and all the boys picked auto. And people were crying. It was really hard to get people in the right seat at that point, and then nobody wanted plumbing. So that's when we started looking at more of an application process to you realize this is what you're coming here for, you know?
But that's why the exploration side of it gave you a taste of everything. At such a young age, it's so hard for kids to know what they want to be.
I agree.
well, they wrote a grant to the
Yes.
next year,
Yes.
developing a summer program to do some of that exploration.
Before,
Yeah.
So they're gonna be developing that during this school year.
Yes.
The summer is a time to do that, it's like late
so would that be for like, is that already accepted?
Seventh grade,
seventh to
Okay.
eighth.
yep, seventh grade summer, so that they can come through, those that think they want, or PCTA or any career tech area, we can figure it out.
Yep.
And remember, and get the kids in the program through rotation, so they can pick in the eighth grade more. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I used to, a couple of times, 3-4 years, brought the rising eighth graders at the end of the school year to PCTA to at least get a taste of the school. But I can't do it this year. The buses.
It's hard. These things are hard.
There's a lot of
But
money.
the summer, I think that,
Kids
I
love
think
it.
outside funders
Yeah.
would be interested in that, that
Yeah.
exposure over the summer. But again, you gotta make sure, because PCTA, we turned away 600 kids. How do we run these, like, once they create a concept, how do we make sure that the kids spend the
Yeah,
day
because the
in
kids that are
Mount
going through that aren't necessarily gonna get into school.
Yeah, but if we have a rotation that is literally a physical rotation, and they spend 3 days at Alvarez in the healthcare program, and then they do a lab at Biomed, and, like, they'll see that it isn't just PCTA, but like PCTA, we don't have a demand problem for PCTA. Like, it's always funny when we start this conversation, and people are like, well, you should recruit here, it's like, no, that's not the issue, it's the right kid, right seat match that just requires an investment that is, just, it's a lot. They're, the people from the governor's board, remember when they went on that trip to, where was that? St. Louis?
St. Louis, the
Or somewhere where they
JA.
have like, almost like a dome, look like the Epcot Center, but
Yeah,
like
Junior
they
Achievement
they
has, like,
created
their-
a building in the city And they have sort of a mandate, I don't know who funded it, but like, that's what we need. And during the year, so it's not a school, because to get kids, if you take 100 seventh graders and bring them to PCTA on a school day, that disrupts everybody. But if you had it like if the Armory became like a career center, then, in first grade, third grade, fifth grade, you have this cadence, and every kid had in
But
St.
we
Louis.
have a space,
We do.
we do, but we need money.
You need money to equip it, and then you could have this like sort of neutral site.
Yeah, they have like BizTown, like
Yes, it
CTE,
was the coolest
and I
thing
think
I've ever seen.
financial something.
Yeah, they had financial
And
literacy, but they also, like they have a
you can
construction
run- they
zone
run
and
the
a
whole
healthcare
city.
zone, yeah.
They have like mayor's office, city council, they have a bank, you get like a paycheck, you have to go buy your house, buy your car,
Yeah.
buy groceries, and the kids have to run their whole lives in that day.
But it sounds like they're sort of like charter, public, parochial, whatever. If you live in that city and, first grade you do this, third grade you do that, like they have it all. So it's the money, it's the
And be open year
infrastructure.
round.
But once you build it, you're just kind of repeating over and over again for everyone, but everyone's getting to see that.
And they would start,
But summer
Like
is
fourth,
like
fifth
that.
grade.
We have the facilities, we have open buildings. We just need the funding to have the instructors there. The parents will come. I mean, what seventh grade parent would not want to have their kids do some kind of 4 weeks of rotation? But I would like it to start at PCTA, but I'd like to move it out of PCTA so that we don't.
PCTA should be last, they have to complete all the other
Yes.
programs.
Yeah, you have like a passport book. And if
Yes,
you don't have
yes.
4 stamps, you can't come here.
Yes.
But it is important because, these other schools may not have the beautiful field house and the look, the modern architecture, but they have great programs inside the building.
How many slots would be the summer program?
Depends on the money.
Yeah, depends on where we're gonna get the funding from and how many teachers we can recruit to teach.
Mhm.
And be honest, it could, just off the top of my head, if you're a certified teacher and at least have, culinary background, you could run the program. It's not even really run a program, it's just an exposure, but who are we gonna get to weld if they're not a certified welder and teach the kids about welding, Or who we, the general construction and auto.
What's the community?
Can we have like a more, and I think this would be a good conversation over summer, like what am I trying to frame it? Like a fundraising conversation, and not like typical fundraising, but we have big companies that are, I know we've lightly talked about it previously, but we have big companies invested in, our programs, right? In terms of getting input. And, I know that there is investment from these companies to PPSD other than sort of the hiring aspect, but is there a way to leverage more dollars to particular, let's say a company is like, hey, we'll pay for the summer program, it's gonna be called this company, Providence CTE summer program, right? Like, is there a way to leverage some of these, great things are happening, and then companies like, hey, we're a proud sponsor, we're a proud investor, to put in, because I don't think more dollars are gonna come to the city of CTE, in general, either from the state or from the city. I don't think.
Well,
more
that's
dollars
what the
are
JA Inspire does.
Yeah.
So like whatever bank decides to
Corporate
host,
sponsors,
corporate
yeah.
decides like, Bank of America, they put all their logos up and they run the bank for that summer or that month. And then, they alternate, so there's another one.
Mhm.
That's how they do it. Keep
And
those-
in that
keep everyone
center,
around.
they have the branding. We're doing our first sponsorship with a PR marketing firm called Blue Forge, and we're bringing in a small amount of money to put banners in different places in the city. So that's our first foray into it, and 10 years ago that might not have been possible, but I think now, public school systems know that we've got to give a little bit of the real estate to these industry partners and get that funding. So at that JA center in the Midwest, the financial center has a bank on it, and then maybe one of the unions or one of the companies sponsors the construction of the manufacturing area, and for 100,000 you get this, and you'd almost, I would like to see it done outside, I mean, I think what PCTA is doing needs to happen because the center that we saw is pie in the sky. But, it would need its own staff and it should not just be a public school initiative
Yeah.
like JA or, it needs a serious partner and its own staff. But I think we can do both. I think what they're starting with, I think what might also want to calculate is if, let's say we just started with PCTA and Central, those two schools. What's the cost per kid? And then you send out that sponsorship letter, like you could sponsor 5 kids at 20,000, whatever, whatever the cost is. It's fairly easy to calculate, I mean, to Judy's point, depending on how many shops you open, times the hourly rate for the teacher, times 2 teachers a day, and the capacity of the kids, you can get to, it's gonna cost each kid, it's $1,200 to go through this experience. Who wants to sponsor 1 kid, 12 kids?
Yeah. Like we need, like for example, PCTA, could we like sell naming rights to rooms, right? Like you may not want that. I'm just like,
No,
I'm
listen, whatever's
just
gonna
thinking,
bring,
like, right?
Put
Like,
black up.
whatever's gonna bring money in.
I mean, I think that's something to test.
legally.
I think it's to test with the school board. I mean, I'd really like to know now that the ESSER funding is going away and we're in this contraction, what is the comfort level? I mean, I think that's a discussion. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when Channel 1 put the TVs on the walls and that was very controversial, right? They would come into a school and they would say, we'll put a TV in, remember there were no smart boards, I'm pretty old, put a TV in the corner, Channel 1. And it was like this national thing. And if you put the TVs in your high school, you had to show a half an hour news show every morning and show ads on the TV show. And it like, school board meetings turned wild, like, some people, we don't want that to happen here.
Yeah.
So I think it's like something to test the waters with, like a banner on the soccer field and naming rights to a room or this far apart, like where is the school board? Like what is the role of corporate?
Yeah.
It's not just a CTE thing,
I
it's,
agree.
What about higher education institutes? I mean, this is where I want, we're flooded by colleges in this state per square capita, right? Per square mile. Why aren't our colleges helping us? Why aren't our colleges?
There's a guy in a DWAC member from a URI professor that is like ready, all in for Providence. He constantly tells us in every meeting, what do you guys need? He has professors ready to come in.
but money, are you talking about money?
Not about money. Or giving
Or giving space.
or giving space, or giving scholarships. I mean, I know the scholarship, this whole process, but there should be, a CTE scholarship specific for, like, Johnson & Wales should be just like looking at PCTA and saying, these are the requirements, and one of your seniors will get this for pastry, one will get for culinary. Maybe we're trying to do a hospitality program, intertwined, and
Do you guys have any connections with Johnson Wales like that?
but they don't want to, I don't know who to talk to. I mean, they don't want to do it.
I think
money.
what could be a good,
$50,000 out of the pocket.
yeah, but maybe what could be just a good convening is whether CT related or even bigger with those Providence schools, it's just convening those folks, colleges and universities, and be like, hey, how can we explore each other? I would think like colleges like Brown, right? They just made a deal with the city. They might feel like, we're giving X amount of dollars, maybe I don't know. But I think we're definitely an aspect of how we explore more partnerships, bringing in more funding. I would say for me, in terms of just sponsorships, as a board member, I'd say why not? If it's going to be a good return on investment, and if there are other board members or elected officials that are against it, especially elected officials, you advocate for dollars for the school district,
Yeah, I'm just saying.
We're not
it's-
getting-
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to test the waters and see, what does that mean to different people so that it doesn't,
Absolutely.
I mean, there are companies that would be happy with all these smart boards and jumbotrons in the field houses and,
We have it now.
and so is that okay? We got a jumbotron, can we put Burger King? can we put, can we rotate different companies in the area and college ads, New England Tech, like what can we do? But I think it's, before we dive too deep, I think the one that I'm about to launch is not going to be a lightning rod because it's on athletic facilities. Like where, like classrooms might be totally off, like what are the parameters? But I also think you're talking about like a 501c3.
Davies Auto Repair Lab is DuPont sponsored, and it's all DuPont product for paint. But they gave them all the paint to paint the cars, and their partnership with Tasca's in there, and they get automobiles. And they used to be, their alignment shop was Midas or Meineke, and it was right up there. This is Meineke Lab, but they also gave them all the equipment.
Yeah, I think it's something we should continue to talk about.
Definitely continue to talk, because we're getting straight.
Um,
And we're expanding programs, just to put it out there, without increased parking. We're not getting more money, we're just creating more programs. So there's, like the more interest, like we're gonna be a victim of our success if we don't figure out another revenue stream.
Can we share revenue? I mean, the programs that have work-based learning where they're actually can sell product and make money on the product, can we share revenue? I don't know, I'm not messing with that money.
we're definitely past the hour.
I like the student survey.
If there's any other feedback on student survey, shoot a message. June 6th, career signing day.
Yes, please come.
That's
We have 106 students
It's
that
on my
we
calendar.
are honoring, going to industries that are matched to their CTE program.
I'm sorry. See you guys at the next meeting. I'll
Yeah.
see you on June 6th.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank
Any
you.
help that we can get, just, getting the energy up. The mayor did
That's
RSVP.
fine. I think Judy's still fine.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
I didn't know if that door was really loud. We do have the mayor speaking. We have Andrew Cortez coming from Building Futures to speak, and the superintendent. And then we're going to honor those 107 students with a certificate, and each employer is bringing swag to, just show their support. My only worry is always participation. It's a busy time of year. People have proms and award ceremonies and graduations, so we're competing with a lot of people for their time.
Yeah.
So, any support that you can give us, the employers have been wonderful, speakers are wonderful. We just need the kids to prioritize this honoring, and it's a busy time. So we're excited about it. See how it goes.
I will do that. Any questions, any further comments, something like that? With nothing else, thank you all for attending. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. Motion second. All in favor of adjourning the meeting, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Abstention. Motion passes. Thank you so much, and thank you to whoever streamed this meeting. Yeah, it was streamed, right? We're streaming, yeah.
Was there people on?
Watching stream.
But I forward you that, link,
Yes, I saw that.
so that's
I will-
actually like the number one